Hi everyone, Gruntle here, and this is my guide to legendary and unique weapons in Borderlands the pre-sequel. This episode we're looking at the Hail, which is a unique assault rifle manufactured by Vladof and returning from Borderlands 2. So this is part of Iwajira's loot pool, so you'll need to farm Iwajira if you want this weapon, and it will always come in an elemental type. So it can either come in cryo, or it can also come in, shock, incendiary, and corrosive damage, they all have the same stats if they have the same parts, just a different elemental type. And if we have a look at the weapon here close up, you can see that it has a Moxxi skin, and what that's going to mean is that you get 3% of the damage you deal back as health. So when you're wielding this gun, any damage you deal, you'll get 3% of that back as health to your character. So that is pretty cool. And you also see that it has the red text here, what plaything can you offer me today? And apparently that is a line, or part of a line, said by Ming the Merciless from the 1980 film Flash Gordon, although I'm not sure of the significance of that because I haven't seen the film myself, so I don't know what it's talking about. But anyway, the name Hail refers to the way that the bullets fire out of the weapon, and basically what they do is they do a bit of an arc and rain down or hail down on the enemy. That's why I'm using the cryo version as well, because of the hail. It's more correct, I think, than say a corrosive version, because you don't really usually get corrosive hail. It's usually in ice. But yes, it comes in all those other elements as well, which is a good thing. You want guns to come in multiple elements. Anyway, we're looking at the parts here. So this is the Dahl barrel. The Dahl barrel is what it's always going to spawn with, and it gives it increased accuracy and recoil reduction, I believe, or something like that. It helps with the accuracy of the weapon, although because of the interesting fire rate, fire spread, bullet spreads thing that it does, the accuracy isn't that much of a big deal. So it does say it's got 77.3 accuracy, but it's probably a bit less because you have to change the way you fire and all that kind of thing. But anyway, I'll show you that in a second. It has the Vladof grip in this version, and that is because I'm trying to increase the fire rate of the weapon, just so you get a higher chance of getting critical shots on enemies and things like that, and then you can get that critical hit damage of 150% extra, which is another good thing about this weapon. It has the Dahl stock, and that's because all assault rifles are best with a Dahl stock. It increases accuracy and gives recoil reduction and recoil recovery. It has the Vladof sight, just because I like the Vladof sight with a Vladof weapon. And finally, the Rabbit prefix comes from this attachment right here, which basically increases the fire rate of the weapon and the damage of the weapon, but reduces the accuracy. Now, originally I put on the Swift prefix one, which also is in this spot but looks a little different. However, if you have that attachment, it increases the bullet speed as well as fire rate, which means that that's something that you want to steer clear of when you're using this weapon. You don't want to increase bullet speed with things like only the best skill for Aurelia, which increases bullet speed by 20% for the first one, and I think 100% by the time you stack it up for 5. Basically what that does is it means that, I'll show you the fire of this weapon, it does that big arc thing. Basically it means that the arc is way higher, more difficult to hit enemies, and yes, something that you don't want, so you'd have to stand really far back and aim quite far down to hit the enemies properly. But without the increase of bullet speed, you can get a reasonable amount of shots off with not too much change in where you're firing. So yes, stay away from the Swift prefix and anything that increases bullet speed in terms of skills. Now, again, the firing of this weapon, even aim down sights, you're going to have to aim downwards a bit from the enemy, or go further back and get it to drop down on their head. And you might be able to see it here. I'll go further back. The bullets actually split in two, some of them anyway. So if I can get it to go through that window, come on game, help me out here. fire rate isn't great, so I'm not able to get, or it's too good, sorry, so I'm not able to get a single shot off properly here, but there's a single shot, there's a single, there you go, that one split in two, you would have seen that. So basically some of the bullets split into a second or two pellets after a certain amount of distance, so if you go far enough away you can actually double the damage that you're going to deal to the enemies, which is pretty neat. You just have to make sure that both of those shots will hit the enemy, so it's best with a large enemy such as EOS or something like that, you'll get more of the shots off. Now, in terms of splash damage, actually, that's something I haven't talked about yet, you're going to get 80% of the damage back, or 80% splash damage. There's a splash damage of 80%, so there's a splash damage radius that will give 80% of the damage of the weapon as splash, which is pretty awesome as well. Means that the damage of the weapon is more than it looks on the card, especially with that second pellet coming off, and that, yeah, makes it quite potent. And now if we're thinking of characters to use, I would say that with the shock version of this, Athena will be great with her Maelstrom and the Saronic Storm tree. They're getting the stacks up with the shock damage there. Or Aurelia with this cryo version is what I reckon will be fun to use for me. That's what I'll be using in the demonstration that we're about to do here. And also with the increased critical hit damage, you're going to want to test it out with Nisha as well, because her Tombstone skill gives you an increased chance of critical hits on non-critical hits. Basically, you do more critical hits even if you're not hitting their critical spot, and so you get more of that increased damage from the critical hit damage increase of the weapon. So that's kind of cool. Actually, one thing I haven't done yet, which I don't know why I haven't done it yet, is compare it to the purple version of the same parted Vladof weapon. You can see that the damage and the accuracy on the card are slightly increased, although you got to remember the accuracy is different with this weapon. And the magazine size is also increased. The normal version also doesn't have the increased critical hit damage, and everything else is basically the same. So the other thing to remember is that with a normal purple Vladof, you're going to get the bullets firing off directly in front of you, as opposed to doing the arc. Arc is the correct word. Now we're going to jump to gameplay with Aurelia, and we're going to test out how good this weapon actually is, and I'll let you know what I'm thinking about that weapon. So we're here in Overlook with the Hail and Aurelia. Of course, we've got the cryo version of the Hail here, and I'm still kind of getting used to the bullet spread of this weapon, and I will figure out in a second that aiming down sights is a bad idea because you can't see where the bullets are going and you can't adjust your aim on the fly. But yeah, it's actually pretty useful. The increased critical hit damage is very useful, and the split bullets at a distance are also great. You get all that increased damage, and it just takes enemies reasonably quickly. Increasing the fire rate of the weapon is actually a great thing as well, with that Vladof grip, as I'm getting more shots off on the enemies, which is very useful. Now, this being in cryo element, it's good because it freezes enemies and they can't really run away as much, so you can get more of the hits properly. And just here you'll see that fight for your life mode is actually okay with this weapon, especially in the cryo element where they can't really run away from you. But the increased critical hit damage and the split bullets if you're a distance away mean that you can get a lot of damage on the enemy in pretty reasonable amount of time. And if you want to check the description, by the way, I'll leave a link to the wiki page for the weapon. You'll be able to read a bit more about it. It's also got the Borderlands 2 version information on there as well, so you can check that out. It's just below the like button if you want to check it out. I reckon this is actually an all-round great weapon. It's great for boss fights as well, with the increased critical hit damage and the split bullets when you're a distance away, and also that health regen from the Moxxi side of the weapon. So yes, all round awesome, and all in the different elements, so great weapon to use. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, make sure you subscribe for more of these weapon guides if you haven't already, and thank you very much for watching.